That's author, musician, singer Al Cole from a CBS radio background, now host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction. Coming up, we got a guy who's great. He's a doctor, and his name is Dr. Tim O'Shea, and more specifically, he's a chiropractor. He's been on my show and really talked it up in such a great way. I got to bring him back. And this time, we're going to be talking about arthritis. I've been getting a lot of people who have been emailing me and saying, Al, how about having somebody who knows a lot about arthritis come on your show? Because there's so many misconceptions about arthritis. What do you do about it? Some people would say, even doctors, would say, you can't do nothing about arthritis. And I don't think that that's quite true. Then there are other people like Tim who are into the alternatives of medicine, the alternatives even of our society in general, who will say, hey, this, that. These are some of the things that work with arthritis. And our show is going to be about arthritis, why drugs don't work. Because a lot of people take a lot of drugs in our society, and sometimes these drugs are called medications. Well, there's still drugs in the end, and sometimes we don't need a drugged-up society. And Tim is going to be talking about that. Arthritis, why drugs don't work. And if you run to his website, thedoctorwithin.com, that's thedoctorwithin.com, not only will you get a lot of information on Tim and his great work internationally, the guy's always traveling around, but also hydrolyzed collagen. We're going to be talking about that too. That is one of Tim's special products, and it works. And we're going to find out how it works and what it does for arthritis, maybe particularly here, because that is what we're going to be talking about. Arthritis, why drugs don't work. Welcome, Tim, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. How you doing today?
Thank you very much, Al. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be my pleasure, too, learning, and the pleasure of all of our listeners, learning about something that we thought we knew about, but man, we're just scratching the surface, because you're going to bring us back to square one and redefine a lot of things in the same way that I redefine romance. I'm going to redefine arthritis here and why drugs don't work. Tell us a little bit about, let's creep up on this thing. With arthritis, even before drugs or anything, how does arthritis really develop in a person? Is it just old age, or do younger people get arthritis? What actually is arthritis?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. We'd like to define the term because it seems to be one of those words that everybody uses without really understanding the essence of it. It's from the Latin, of course. It just means an inflammation of the joints. Joint inflammation, that's a general term meaning arthritis. And you're exactly right that most medical doctors who are consulted for diagnosis of arthritis, they will say that there's nothing you can do about it to avoid it. It's just a consequence of getting older. And the only thing that we have for you are aspirin, non-steroidal drugs, stronger drugs, and that's about all we can do for you to alleviate your pain and suffering. But there's a lot bigger picture to it once you really study it, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
And I'm looking forward to it. My listeners are as well. Now, let's say that somebody develops arthritis at, 50 years old or something. What are some of the things that they should look at? And, usually we think, okay, well, since it's inflammation of the joints, we're going to feel it. But do you always feel the onset of arthritis, or is it masked in certain ways?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. The primary causes of arthritis is something occurs in the patient's life to cause what we call a disarticulation of a joint. Now, when we're talking about joints, we're talking about any joints of adjacent bones throughout the whole body. You can have arthritis in any bony joints, from the fingers to the hands to the wrists to the elbows to the shoulder. You can have arthritis of the ribs against the sternum. And of course, you can have spinal arthritis throughout the joints of the intervertebral joints all down the spine. You can have arthritis in the sacroiliac joints and in the hip joints and in the many parts of the knee articulation, then the ankle joint and the foot bones and the toe bones. So all of these are susceptible areas to the onset of arthritis. And what arthritis usually has in common is something occurs. It's either trauma or microtrauma. Microtrauma just means some activity that you do every day that gradually does not contribute to full range of motion of a joint. And that joint loses its full range of motion and becomes stuck and begins to wear out the cushion between the two ends of the bones, and eventually begins to deteriorate the joint itself. That's usually the onset of arthritis.
Now, when you see that as a chiropractor, what? Now, I know that there probably is many ways to go as there are individuals that have those symptoms. But for the sake of our audience and for the sake of just streamlining here, what are some of the first things that one should do when one exhibits some of these symptoms that you're talking about right now?
Well, I'll start with traditional chiropractic. That's what I'm a traditional, old-fashioned chiropractor. In other words, our area of focus is the vertebral spine, but a lot of chiropractors are also trained in adjusting the extremities. That means the arms and legs as well. But most people come to the chiropractor for neck problems and low back problems. And I am a very traditional chiropractor. I don't treat people or make adjustments on people unless they have x-rays. So I have a clinic that I work with, and people go there for digital x-rays, and then they will email me the results of those x-rays, and then I can see exactly which bones of the spine are locked out of place. And then I proceed from there to make chiropractic adjustments of those displaced vertebrae. The same thing can happen in the rest of the joints of the spine. Now, let's see. In a young person, very often, if you get to this displacement of vertebrae early enough, there will be no degeneration of the disc or the bones themselves, the vertebrae themselves, and then just a few specific adjustments, and the person is back to normal, complete range of motion within that joint. If the we call it a subluxation in the vertebral spine, that means the bone is locked out of place. It's out of its normal position, right? And if those are allowed to maintain in a person for years or decades, because just like you said, very often for the first few years, you may have no symptoms at all. It might not hurt at all, but you gradually notice that you can't raise your hand all the way above your head the way you used to when you were a teenager, or you can't put your hand behind your back and touch the opposite shoulder blade, or you have trouble taking a sweater off, or getting dressed or something like that. People will notice that they have decreased range of motion, but it doesn't really hurt yet. And so these are subtle indicators that you need to be evaluated for these subluxations, which are pretty routine, not difficult to fix in the early stages.
Okay, we get that. And, you said a very important word. You said a lot of important words, but one of them is degeneration. I think a lot of my listeners, especially ones who have gone through arthritis and going through it, have heard that term, getting degeneration in the spinal area, lower spine, upper spine, the neck area. I think typically it would be a lot of people, the lower back seems to be one of the areas, even down, below the hips, into the buttocks area. People will get that sort of pain, maybe constantly, maybe intermittently, through degeneration. Now, degeneration, I believe, can happen not through just natural means, but also maybe having an accident or something. What we call we might call it whiplash initially, but it's more than just whiplash, I guess. But sometimes, people are always getting into accidents, and maybe even at young ages, and then the degeneration starts. Is that another way for degeneration to come in through actual physical means with accidents?
Yeah, that's really the fastest way that arthritis happens. I mean, all of us could talk about our injuries that have happened to us during our lives and regale our listeners for hours about the details of our personal injuries, right? The problem is, though, the injury has an acute phase where there's a lot of swelling involved, and then gradually these injuries heal. The problem is you will have residual problems that are going to lead to degeneration if the articulations, if the joints are allowed to remain locked out of place in the position that the trauma caused to them. Like just recently, about 6 months ago, I was in a motorcycle accident. I have a big motorcycle, and I was riding on the street, and some idiot opened his door right in front of me in traffic. I was going really slow, but still it slammed me down to the one side. And I really injured my low back. Now, there was an acute phase. There's an acute phase for a few weeks where there was a lot of pain and swelling. But, I know enough I had my spine x-rayed immediately. And then I know some excellent chiropractors here in California. And I immediately began to be adjusted so that bone would retain its normal complete range of motion. So what so often happens is even as people heal, as their injuries heal, we say they heal wrong if the bones are allowed to remain locked out of place. And then over time, over months and years and decades, that bone being out of place will cause just what you said, the degeneration of the structures, the individual structures of the joints, whether it's the discs in the low back, or the ligaments, or the tendons, or the joint capsules. All these structures can become chronically inflamed and can become fibrotic. And the bones of the spine eventually themselves will become misshapen as calcium is deposited in incorrect places.
Now, there are a couple of things here then. Talking about calcium deposits, I think people have heard about that traditionally. And now you were also talking about another chiropractor that you might see. Now, it's tough to work on yourself that way, even if you're an expert. That's right, even impossible. And you're talking about adjustments. That would be one of the ways that why drugs don't work with arthritis, and maybe adjustments do. You don't always need drugs, or you probably never or very seldomly need drugs. You need a good chiropractor to make the right sorts of adjustments. Now, are adjustments always the way, or are they 90% of the way, or 50%? How important are adjustments, and are there other things outside of adjustments that can help arthritis here?
Okay, that's a good question. Chiropractic is founded on the holistic principle. In other words, it's non-invasive. We always say chiropractic first, drugs second, and surgery as seldom as possible.
Right.
So we want to go from least invasive to most invasive. We want to go from least dangerous to most dangerous. And so with chiropractic, when it's correctly analyzed and correctly carried through and performed, it should have no side effects. So in fact, most people feel much better after an adjustment because you have just freed up a locked segment of the spine. You've just unlocked it, and they are much more relaxed, and the muscles will relax and at the end of an adjustment. So that's just a no-brainer. The best chiropractors will check patients, and if they don't need an adjustment, they will not adjust anything. So it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of idea. But most of the people, especially with the trauma and stresses of modern American life, the stresses. I'm here in Silicon Valley, right? And people are routinely sitting in front of a computer 15 hours a day. That's literally, many do that 6 days a week. And this is the most abnormal position. It's the most unnatural position for a mammal to be in, especially for the lower neck and for the lower back, to sit in front of a computer in a seated position hour after hour. And this is for people who never have injuries. They don't have sports injuries. They don't have auto accidents and whiplash. They just sit in this chair. I have a whole chapter on this concept on my website, thedoctorwithin.com, and the chapter is called Silicon Valley Syndrome. And it talks about micro trauma, this day in, day out, abnormal work positions, right? That eventually leads to subluxation and degeneration of the spine.
Whoa. Now, we're going to get heavy into this stuff. And I want you to get heavy into this website as we're doing it, people. Follow along. Go to thedoctorwithin.com and really get involved in some of the things that Dr. Tim O'Shea is talking about right now. He's our special guest on People of Distinction. With Al Cole, we're going to get into his hydrolyzed collagen as well, and other mediums that don't involve drugs at all and that can help with arthritis. We're going to get into some of the stuff right now. You mentioned calcium deposits a while back, and we at least we think we know that, calcium, boy, it's not good for it's good for the bones, but then it's not good for arthritis that way. How do we adjust calcium in our diet if we do have arthritis, or should we even try?
That's an erroneous idea from the start. I'm glad you mentioned it because a lot of people have that idea. There is a principle of bone physiology that every doctor learns. It's called Wolff's Law, and the law is bone remodels according to stress. Bone remodels according to stress. Let's say you, Al, are in some kind of accident that makes you from then on, you kind of lean over to your right side, just a little bit, and nobody would really notice it. But a chiropractor who's doing a posture evaluation would notice it in a minute, right? And you just slightly lean to the right side because you had a bicycle accident, let's just say, okay, and went on for years. Well, since you're leaned over to the right side, that would mean down by your sacrum in your low back. Let's say between L5 and sacrum, there's going to be more pressure on your right side than there is on your left side. So the body will sense that. Bone remodels according to stress, and the body will realize the body always must preserve the nervous system, which is the spinal cord, right? So the body will deposit more calcium on the right side of the sacrum and maybe L5 in order to support the abnormal amount of weight on your right side. So after years and years of this, you take an X-ray of that person, and you will see they don't have a normal looking vertebra at L5. Let's say it'll look like, we say, candle wax dripping. It'll look like candle wax dripping a lot because extra calcium has been deposited in order to protect the spinal cord after all these years. So if this person were analyzed at the beginning or just routinely, that distortion, that postural distortion, would have never been allowed to persist all these years, and that calcium deposition would have never happened.
This is good because you just mentioned X-rays twice. You mentioned it just now, you mentioned it earlier, and that you don't really treat a person without having first an X-ray. I'm going to lay a technical terminology on you, Doc, and a lot of my listeners are not going to know what this is. I don't really know a lot about what this is, but I do research. And I came up with flat panel X-rays. Now, are they the best for determining particularly arthritis, or are there other sorts of X-rays that would be preferable here?
It's for a chiropractor, we just go with the old-fashioned plain film X-ray. Chiropractic and röntgenology or radiography, these two professions, they had parallel lines of evolution. The guy who discovered X-ray in the first place, his name was Wilhelm Röntgen. He discovered X-ray the very same year that the guy who developed chiropractic made the first adjustment, which was in 1895. So chiropractors have always had a sort of a parallel professional DNA with the science of radiology. And personally, now a lot of people will disagree with me, but I really don't care. In my opinion, the traditional chiropractor will take advantage of his tradition. And, my opinion is that X-ray is a critical tool or criterion used to make decisions about, what to adjust as a chiropractor in a patient.
Oh, I agree completely. It's like going to a dentist and he says, well, I'm going to have to remove this tooth, that tooth, that tooth. How do you know that, Doc? Well, I got a feeling. Looking at it, I get a feeling. Oh, you're not going to take any X-rays? Nah, I work by intuition. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And I agree totally. X-rays are a must here. And as Tim was saying, maybe plain film X-rays might be the best here. So, hey, this is a lot of great information. We've talked about, of course, X-rays twice here. Degeneration, what that means, adjustments, calcium deposits, especially unusual calcium deposits that might be growth on one side because one is leaning in that area, etc. I'm just simplifying it right now.
Yes.
Let's get into some drugs or supplements anyway, if not drugs, why drugs don't work and why some supplements might work, what we call supplements that are more than just supplements, maybe fish oil, omega-3 intake. Does that work particularly well with arthritis?
It's definitely a contributor. Most Americans are essential fatty acid deficient, mainly because of the misunderstanding they have about good fats versus bad fats. Mm-hmm. This is sort of a detailed area that I go into in the chapters of the website at thedoctorwithin.com. But the short version of this is forget all the supplements and the MLMs and the online MLMs that people are trying to get you to join. My opinion is if you eat grilled fish or baked fish 4 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, you're getting enough essential fatty acids to meet your needs.
Whoa. Now that's great info. And it could be salmon?
Definitely.
Oh, okay. I like salmon. I see. I'm not really a big fish fan. I never have been, but I have gotten fish into my diet more and more. and salmon particularly. And one of the reasons I like salmon so much, boneless salmon, no bones at all,
Oh
and
yeah,
it because it's less fishy actually
yeah,
than a lot of other. What about cod? Is that good?
yeah. Cod,
Okay.
cod also, it's cod has a more fishier, more oily consistency to it. But now, do you live near any Whole Foods up there,
Oh
Al?
yes, yeah. There are a couple not too
So
far from where I live.
you're really fortunate. Over the years, I live in here in Silicon Valley. There are 5 Whole Foods within driving distance of my house,
Yeah.
right? Within a half hour, right?
Hmm.
Anyway, in Manhattan, there's a great Whole Foods right there. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is I've made friends with the managers of the fish section in Whole Foods, and I've discovered that we're really fortunate because Whole Foods flies fresh fish into all their markets in the United States from South America, from the Mediterranean, from Alaska, every 3 days.
Hmm.
So what we have to choose from, we're really fortunate to be in the situation that we are. So I just tell people, well, it's okay to have a variety of fish. It's good to have a variety, but if you just like one kind of fish, well, just buy that one and just learn how to grill it without oil. Do not put oil on. Do not cook a fish with oil.
Oh, really?
That is totally defeating the purpose. First of all, the fish is has a lot of oil, has sufficient oil in it. But if you pour extra virgin olive oil in a pan and
Yeah.
then put the fish down, that is a complete waste of time because you are taking a chance that the heat will transform the olive oil into trans fatty acids, and
Oh.
it will cause a negative effect from the benefit of the essential fatty acids in the fish. So either cook it at a much lower heat than you're used to, or else just put it on the grill, or else just bake it. But do not use oil, any kind of oil, when you're preparing fish.
And not butter either.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Right. Definitely not butter. No
So
oil. So if you're somebody like me that likes convenience and you just want to put it in a frying pan, you put it in a frying pan by itself
yeah,
at very
uh,
low
yeah,
flame.
you'll discover that the oil will form, but if you do it at a low enough heat and then just keep turning it, it doesn't take very long. Personally, I never do that in a pan. I always put it on the grill, whether it's a George Foreman or whether you broil it or allowing the fat to drip down a little bit. But just, because it doesn't take that long to prepare fish, only a few minutes.
Can you ever use olive oil for any sort of frying or cooking purposes? Even the olive oil that says this is for frying?
Not during the 60-day program.
Okay.
we, we, this is a whole chapter on my website. And so in the 60-day program, there is no cooking oils and no salad dressing oils because we're trying to detox the body. We're trying to clear the tract and clear the arterial system, right? So now after the 60-day program, yeah, you can go into the salad dressing oils, but I still the best oils, absolutely the best oil to use, as everyone agrees on this, if you're going to cook with oil, is of course coconut oil, because it's the most stable oil and the least likely to change to trans fats.
Oh boy. Okay. And the one that you get at Whole Foods might be one of the best coconut oils. Hey, this is a wealth of knowledge. People, you got to go to this website, thedoctorwithin.com. And we're going to be talking about hydrolyzed collagen, too, as a way to combat, quote unquote, arthritis here. This is great stuff, Tim. And, I want to get some feature on collagen, and especially your hydrolyzed collagen, featured on your website. That is a non-drug, and this probably works better than maybe anything else we've talked about. Certain adjustments and, chiropractors, but in something that we can do ourselves, hydrolyzed collagen can really combat arthritis then, is that right?
Yeah, that's true. But if you don't mind, Al, before we talk about that, I would
Sure.
like to just very briefly talk about the traditional prescription treatment that most people get for a diagnosis of arthritis.
Okay.
And they'll start out with aspirin and then ibuprofen, the nonsteroidals. And then if it persists and they complain longer, then the doctor will go into the corticosteroids like prednisone and those derivatives. And the problem with these drugs, these are valuable drugs. They do have a, and I forgot about the pain drugs like Vicodin and that class of drugs. Now these drugs do have their place in, human pharmacology, but my opinion is therefore more or less short-term situations where the person is in such pain and discomfort that they really can't sleep or they can't have a normal life, and then to take those drugs for short term. But every one of the drugs that I just mentioned, if you take it longer than maybe 2 weeks at the outside, it's going to begin to have side effects, have physiologic and physical effects that are worse than the original complaint of arthritis. So this is a whole area, and this is a real cautionary area. The one very dramatic example of this that I want to mention, on my website, I'm sure you looked at the newsletter archive.
Oh, yes.
Which I keep every month. I put out a newsletter to 60,000 people, and I archive them on the website. But I did this one about remember when Glenn Fry of the Eagles died about a year and a half ago or whenever that was?
Yeah.
Well, please go back in my archive and read the whole thing that I wrote about him. Now, he was diagnosed with the cause of death was supposedly rheumatoid arthritis and pneumonia, and then I read an interview with his agent Irving Azoff, and then I realized, wait a minute, you don't die from rheumatoid arthritis and pneumonia. It was some combination of drugs he was taking for these two diagnoses, and then I realized that for the last 2 or 3 years, they're doing an off-label use for people who have been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is a sort of it's an autoimmune specific type of arthritis, different from what we've been talking about. It's actually much rarer than doctors pretend it is. A lot of people, a huge percentage of people who have been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis do not have it because they're trying to prescribe these very expensive drugs. That's not the bad news. Are you ready for the bad news?
I certainly am. I think we all are. What is that?
First, I have to describe off-label. An off-label use of a drug is prescribing a drug for a diagnosis for which that drug has not been tested and approved. Something like 25% of drugs are now routinely prescribed in off-label uses.
Wow.
So here's the example with Glenn Fry. In my opinion, this is what he died of. We all have had family members die of cancer and go through the whole chemotherapy. It's usually pretty useless. Most people do not die of cancer. Most people die of cancer treatment. And I did not say that to be provocative for its own sake. I have really done the research. There is a whole chapter on my website entitled To the Cancer Patient, so you can go into that. But as far as rheumatoid arthritis, which is what Glenn Fry was, he was diagnosed with, right? They are now, in the past few years, have been using methotrexate, which is one of the most powerful and destructive cytotoxic chemotherapy cancer drugs, traditionally for the last 25, 30 years, right? Now they it's become like a custom, or it's become common to prescribe this cancer drug, methotrexate, for a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. It's virtually impossible when you go into the cell physiology of it. It's virtually impossible for a chemotherapy drug to cure rheumatoid arthritis. It's virtually impossible, but it's kind of like this. This brainwashing that, the shallow, superficial media that we have today, getting people to think that, well, they're so desperate, there's no real cure for rheumatoid arthritis. Let's try this. Let's try the most powerful drug known to man, cancer chemotherapy drugs. And that's really what I believe Glenn Fry died from.
What great insight there. And I'm going to repeat this, and then you can correct me so we can get it out twice to our listeners, because I know that this is valuable information. Methotrexate, is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah, methotrexate. People, Google that and stay away from it, because I have the utmost trust in the expertise of Dr. Tim O'Shea, who is our special guest here.
Let's not get carried away.
Okay.
I don't want the drug companies to put a hitman.
Yeah.
Not take drugs. What I say is, let's find out what the guys who make methotrexate say about it.
Right. And
that is in a book that's in every library, in every community in the United States, called the Physician's Desk Reference. And that's my my reference that I use in my chapter called To the Cancer Patient.
There you go. All right.
Don't worry, I got you.
That's beautiful. What about cortisone? It's of course it's not. It doesn't do exactly what prednisone does, but we should.
They're very similar. They're both corticosteroids. But
that's right.
The problem with cortisone, it is the anti-inflammatory. That's true, but it's prescribed like M&Ms. It's just, it's okay. The purpose of that drug is life-threatening inflammation that the edema must be resolved, or it's going to threaten the person's life. Longer than 2 weeks, if that's the only tool in their toolbox, go to a different doctor, because corticosteroids, while they do dissipate the edema from a joint, that edema that's part of your immune system. That's a significant part of our immune system. That is your body causing that joint to splint up so you can't move it, because moving it is what traumatized it in the first place, right? So the edema, you want to be able to have swelling around an injured joint, okay? So when you artificially keep taking prednisone and corticosteroids, week after week, month after month, like so many people do, not only are you further traumatizing the joint to allow unwarranted motion, too much motion, but the worst news is this: it physically degenerates all of the soft tissue structures of the joint, including the joint capsule, discs, ligaments, tendons, and the bones themselves. That's what they never tell you about steroids.
Isn't that something? And now the disclaimer might be, as you were indicating, maybe in short-term, very judicious use, cortisone might be positively effective.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
That's the value.
Exactly. Okay. In short-term would mean what? When somebody has a problem with pain?
Life-threatening situation, either some disease process or some injury has caused so much swelling that it is interfering with breathing, with circulation, with some vital activity of the body. That's when it's essential to use corticosteroids.
And sometimes, once every 3-4 months or something, that shot that a doctor would give, or is that judicious?
Well, now you're talking about, ask some of the retired NFL players in their 50s how judicious that was.
That's right. Yeah. These things you can never tell. You can't pin it down. You can't pin it down here with Dr. Tim O'Shea either. He doesn't want to be the butt of a hitman. I don't blame him. That was so great. All right, look, let's talk about. We've talked about some drugs here, drugs that don't work or drugs that work only when judiciously done. We talked about some supplements here, fish oil, omega-3, that can be very positive, but it doesn't necessarily cure anything. Is there a cure for arthritis?
Well, yeah. A cure for arthritis. The best cure is prevention, and I would say, it's so amazing. I have patients in their 80s, Al, and they've been going to chiropractors all their lives, right? And I look at an X-ray, a recent X-ray of them, and you'll see, the L5 disc, which is it's the most susceptible to injury in most people, right? It'll be just as thick as a 18-year-old's, disc. So what I'm saying is, you'll look at the whole spinal X-ray, and there's no degeneration in these 80-year-old people, and it's because they had chiropractic care their whole life. They went to chiropractors even when they weren't in pain, just to get checked, to make sure that they didn't have these chronic subluxations, which are really the silent killer. So full range of motion, especially in the spine, but for every joint, full range of motion is the best preventative against arthritis.
That's right. Motion, even exercise. We could call it exercise as well. I think the jumping jacks are one of the best exercises overall. You're moving all of your body that way. Swimming, a lot of people would say that. But, of course, with swimming, you have to go someplace. Even if you to your outdoor swimming pool or maybe indoor swimming pool. But jumping jacks, you can do that. You can do 100 jumping jacks, 200 or whatever in just a minute in the privacy of your own living room or whatever very quickly. Jumping jacks, are they particularly good here?
Well, yeah. All exercise is good in moderation.
Yeah.
And do you know, since you brought that up, do you know what percentage of the American public gets any exercise whatsoever, Al?
Oh, boy. No. Now, see, that, I know it's going to be surprising. I know it's going to be very surprising because we think that we live in an exercise-oriented society, and you're going to prove to us that we really don't. What percentage here?
It's 4%.
Oh, my God. Wait a minute. Let me understand what you're answering. You're answering the question, if I would have asked, what percentage of our population gets regular exercise?
Yeah, I'm not talking about getting dressed and going out, walking to your car and driving your car to work and then walking up the stairs into your office. I'm talking about, doing something like bicycling for exercise or getting on the Stairmaster or doing jumping jacks or running, any of that. A regimented considered program of exercise where you actually, you do the same thing every day or several days a week.
That's
an exercise program, 4% of the population.
That is miserably low. I'd never think that. And we're talking about young people as well?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Across the board?
But that's the thing about arthritis. It used to be like 20 years ago, the statistic was that 60% of people over the age of 60 had some form of osteoarthritis in their bodies. Today, it's much younger. So many people come in their 40s, and I'll X-ray them, and any chiropractor can tell you this. Somebody who routinely looks at people's X-rays. So many people in their 40s already have long-term degenerative arthritis these days, and we have to remember one thing about this. We talked about the traumatic aspect and the micro trauma. Bad posture. That's definitely something that sets the stage for arthritis and chronic subluxation as well. But the other thing that's extremely contributory to the process of arthritis is inflammatory reactive foods. And now the whole metabolic thing, and now we're talking about main thing are pasteurized dairy,
Uh-huh.
refined carbohydrates, that's all the soft drinks, white sugar, white flour, and hydrogenated oils. Those are reactive foods. Creating this, the body can't digest these fake modern foods, and as a result, it tries to. So it's constantly keeping this condition of general inflammation all the time in the body in order to attempt to get rid of these impossible to get rid of food substances that taste so good and we're addicted to, and these this inflammatory state systemically throughout the body contributes to an already problem area in a joint that's already, for some other reason, it is inflamed. And now you float all this Diet Dr. Pepper, a liter of that, as you, and six donuts as you watch the evening news. You know what I'm saying? Keeping this constant inflammatory state throughout the body. That is a major contributor to the chronic aspect of arthritis in general.
I get it. And you're talking about dairy, eggs included, organic eggs included, I guess, right?
No,
Oh.
that's another myth. Cage-free, pasture-raised eggs. No matter what you read on the internet, there's really nothing wrong with that.
Ah, glad to hear that, because actually that is part of my regimen. With eggs, good eggs, organic and, as you're saying, cage-free and all of that. So that's good. Now, let me run it down here, Doc, and you tell me if if particularly I might be on the right track. I will get up certain time. I'm kind of a late night person, so even when I get up, it might not be right at the crack of dawn. But a lot of time, what I'll do is I'll consume quite a bit of water, maybe about three glasses, maybe even four, right from the start. Also, some turmeric, MSM, and coconut juice. Maybe I'll have one of those good eggs, a couple of them, and that sort of thing. And then I'll do exercising right off the bat, some stretching, and then also with my bike, the stationary bike, little, few minute loops on that, and then maybe some jumping jacks, a few push-ups here and there. Things along that line, nothing really heavy, no big time weightlifting or anything like that. Does that sound like I'm on the right track here?
Well, let's ask the question: Do you have chronic pain? Like, do you have chronic headaches, neck pain, disorientation, fatigue?
Well, I was in an accident, a very bad one, about 15 years ago, where my car flipped over 3 times. I should have been dead, but I'm still here, alive and kicking. And I walked out of the car actually without any big injuries at all, except
How long ago?
about 15 years ago. And I still, the lower back. Initially, it was the upper back, particularly around the wing area, that was affected, and the lower back now more than any other part. And I find that when I do the exercising, especially right off the bat, it helps, and stretching. And then my regimen, and not always that it's 100% health foods, because I'm a bachelor and sometimes I like to mix it up with the convenience stuff. But I do quite a bit of exercising that would be non-weight exercising, particularly, and that with the bike, stationary bike, and other things that I've mentioned with the jumping jacks, push-ups, things along that line. It doesn't seem to irritate anything. In fact, if I ever feel irritated in the back, one of the things that I'll do right from the start is exercise, and exercise it away. And I find that relieves it, and I don't have any real big problems, no major problems with pain, because I really watch it. And then I'm pretty active as well, going out there and all of that stuff. So I guess that answer is pretty. I think that answers what you were getting
Yeah,
at with your question.
definitely sounds like you're on the right track there because you have a workable lifestyle. But there's a few things that you could do to improve it, in my opinion. Because remember, it's not just a question making the pain go away, especially with spinal arthritis. By the time the pain gets there, the problem is really locked in. And it's very difficult to correct. So, in addition to what you're doing, my opinion is you should at least, especially with the trauma that you've had in the past, you should go to a really good chiropractor. I think I know some in your area who will take an X-ray and evaluate you. Do
Hmm.
you need do you need adjustments, and then really make sure that all of the joints of your spine are moving freely in all ranges of motion, and then you can really be sure that you're not contributing to an an arthritic process, which might not, manifest itself as chronic pain until way down the road when it's too late to do anything to correct it.
I get it, and yeah, we'll talk about that offline. About maybe some good chiropractors that you know in my area.
Yes.
I really do want to find that out. This is great, great info. One other thing before we get, because you wanted to save hydrolyzed collagen for later in the show, just before.
But we're over an hour now,
I know.
Albie.
we,
You know, I can easily do an entire other hour on the hydrolyzed collagen. This was like the teaser for
oh,
it.
really? Really? Well, what do you think?
I think
You
we
want?
should do that.
All right, I don't mind. Like I said, I'm a late night person. I'm essentially a musician, and musicians tend to be late night people anyway. All my life I've been that. So yeah, we'll get into hydrolyzed collagen. Before that, let me ask you something. Ambien. All right. Now, okay. Why not get personal? Okay, I take Ambien periodically because at one point at CBS Radio, I worked an overnight shift, and I found that sleeping in the daytime was made easier by Ambien, and even the generic of Ambien, which is Zolpidem. Uh,
Right.
does Ambien now? This is not off track because I'm not asking you really about something outside of arthritis. Does Ambien contribute to arthritis at all, or any back pain, or any back situations that one wouldn't want it to contribute to?
That is a that is a very good question, and one that requires a really complete answer, and I'm not prepared. That requires a structured answer and some research. So
Yeah,
let's save that question for the next show, and I'll really give you a credible answer.
fair enough. That's good. And people, I want you to go to this website right now, thedoctorwithin.com. That's www.thedoctorwithin.com, and get into everything that Dr. Tim O'Shea is into for your health, chiropractor, and knows so much about alternative medicine, you could say, alternative ways of staying healthy. We've been talking about it all on People of Distinction. And with Tim's Liberty here, we still have more to talk about, and I'm delighted. Is it the right time to get to hydrolyzed collagen at this point, or are there other things that you want to get to before that, Tim?
Well, I mean, we're an hour and 10 into this. We could start, I guess.
Yeah, why not? You're going to have to start it because you're the
Okay.
man when it comes down to this. Now, we've all heard of collagen, and
Yeah.
I use collagen externally for my face a little bit, and collagen products that have collagen in it, and also colostrum, which I'm told is even better than collagen for the face, as a like a cream or something like that. And we know that collagen it promotes some of the positive growth that kind of dissipates when we age, and
Yes.
we don't have to be that old in order for some of the those positive things working in our body to to start to dissipate. Collagen is one thing that I think most people who care about health would say, oh yeah, thumbs up for collagen. But you're not just talking about regular old everyday collagen here. You're talking about hydrolyzed collagen. Right. I guess the first question would be, what's the difference between collagen and hydrolyzed collagen?
Well, there again, you nailed it from the start, Al. Collagen is another one of those words that everybody uses and very few people really know what it is. So what we're going to do now is we'll discuss just a few excerpts from the very complete chapter that I have on my website, thedoctorwithin.com, and the chapter is entitled Hydrolyzed Collagen. And so what people forget, we have to draw a distinction between the collagen that is the structural building block protein of the human body, the mammalian body really, and supplemental collagen that people take as a dietary supplement. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the mammalian protein. In all mammals, the largest, most abundant protein in the body is collagen. It makes up virtually all the structures of the body, including muscle, bones, skin, all your organs, your lungs included, your heart, your arteries, your tendons, your ligaments. Did I say the skin already? Mm-hmm. Everything, virtually all the structural material of your body is made of collagen. Now, as we age, unfortunately, collagen production naturally falls off, and it falls off even faster with the intake of the inflammatory foods that we mentioned before. And, it's really interesting. I've lived in Europe. I've traveled all over the world. It's so interesting. One of the signs of aging, one of the primary signs of aging that makes plastic surgeons a fortune is this floorward tendency of the skin and muscles as we age, the sagging of everything. And that is an objective consequence of decreased production of collagen as we age. Now, what I was going to say about going to other countries where they're not so based on this processed food, fast food diet that we are, especially among the young people, and you go to other countries, especially other countries that are third world where they're poorer and they have a better diet. It seems like the poorer countries have a better diet among the young people. These people, when they're 30 and 40 years old, they look like kids look like in their 20s here, mm-hmm. And a lot of young people who are in their late 20s here in the United States, they're looking pretty bad. They're looking pretty haggard already. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we see it all the time. That's right.
So, it's a multifactorial phenomenon, but one of the bases of it is certainly the lack of collagen and the decreased production of collagen by the body. So hydrolyzed collagen is a supplement. It comes in a big jar of white powder. I'll give you the whole history and derivation of that in the chapter online called Hydrolyzed Collagen. Don't have time to do that, but I'll just tell you that it's derived from bovine sources, which is the best collagen you can get. It is from grass-fed bovine sources, and that it is hydrolyzed means to cleave a protein molecule to the smallest parts that are the most absorbable for human nutrition. And we get these very small molecules, and so you blend this powder in juice, like for breakfast every day, and you make a smoothie out of fruit or vegetable juice, right? Between 3 and 6 tablespoons a day people are taking. And it's just, I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of cases. We've been using it for 9-10 years now. Joint replacement surgeries that are scheduled, being canceled after a couple months taking these smoothies. There's a section of my website, thedoctorwithin.com, called Feedback and Testimonials. And you click on that button, and there's a whole, dozens and dozens of stories of people talking about exactly this subject here. So it's such a simple thing. It has no taste, and there are so many dramatic effects from it. Not just with rebuilding joints and reducing chronic inflammation in joints, but it has like other effects too. Since collagen makes up all these structures of the body. I mean, all of the women are talking about how the skin in their face gets thicker, and their hair gets thicker, and their fingernails grow faster and get harder, and that's not even the reason they were taking it, right? There's like side effects. Mm-hmm. And I went to a lecture by this double PhD. I was in Germany. It was a double PhD in biochemistry, and he explained this unfortunate phenomenon. Women are really at a disadvantage because of the stretchability that is occasioned by the double X chromosome in women, in order so that they can perform childbirth, give birth, right? This elasticity of the skin, unfortunately, as the woman ages, her skin is physically thinner than, especially in the face, physically thinner than the males. Mm-hmm. And so this is why women are so excited to take something, a natural supplement like this that can have such a dramatic effect. In the Far East, in China and Japan, in fact, that the popularity is just booming all over the world with hydrolyzed collagen. But that's the primary reason in Asia, even more than arthritis. It's the women who take it for cosmetic reasons.
Isn't that something? And yes, I was clued in on that. Absolutely. Collagen with women particularly. And, with guys it works fairly effectively. I know that with procedures, with cosmetic procedures on the face, a lot of times injected collagen. But there are updated ways of doing that that don't involve collagen at all.
That's really something altogether different.
That's different, yeah.
The injected collagen that always has a finite life. It's going to be dissipating from starting the next day, because it didn't happen in a natural way. Mm-hmm. With the hydrolyzed collagen that you're ingesting, you're taking it in a smoothie. It's actually the building blocks of the body's own new collagen. The body is making new collagen, and it's triaging it. What areas of the body are most in need of new collagen? And so you're shoring up your own tissue reserves.
On your website, when you are publicizing the hydrolyzed collagen, I've read some stunning reviews, and there were some reviews that indicated, wow, I started taking this a week ago, dramatic effects. One guy even said, started taking this hydrolyzed collagen, maybe even the first time that he took it, it removed most of the pain that he was having in his lower back. Sometimes this can get that dramatic, Tim?
Oh, yeah. Those were just a couple of stories. Like I said, click on the button that says Feedback and Testimonials, and there's a whole section under that button on thedoctorwithin.com that talks about, sports injuries, severe traumatic sports injuries and auto injuries, where the person was deteriorating after sometimes years of pain drugs, Vicodin and stronger, Motrin 800s, after a short time, after a few weeks, not very long, those type of pain drugs, the adverse effects resulting from them are worse than the pain itself, as anyone who's taken them long term can attest.
Wow. This is impressive stuff. Now, this is something. Can people order this at your website?
Yes.
Okay. And now, I'm assuming that, of course, you're not the manufacturer of this, but certainly it's going through your website. So we're assuming that you're 100% behind this, as you're indicating right now on the show. Are you the I don't know how to put it, but are you the owner of hydrolyzed collagen? Are you?
Well, I'm the formulator.
You're the formulator. Okay.
Yeah, I went out and found the best sources. You know, there's a whole range of quality, you know, the world over, and it took me years to find the best source, and I described that in the chapter called Hydrolyzed Collagen.
I get it. Yeah, so this is a valid source here, people. Again, you know, go to the website, thedoctorwithin.com, and initially under the chapters page, you'll see it, chapters, and then under hydrolyzed collagen after that, and you'll find out all of the information on this. Now, if people did want to order this, as I go to the website, I'm not quite sure of an area specifically where you order this. How do you go about that?
Oh, there's little buttons all over the place. If you scroll down in the hydrolyzed collagen chapter, there's a button that directs you to it, and then there's another button called supplements, and it's easy to find.
Okay, and is there? If one wants to try it out, let's say for a month or so, is it worth it? Certainly, okay. Certain it is.
That is a really good question. A really good question is defined as one that I know the answer to.
Okay. I thought you knew all the answers, Tim.
Oh, no. But for hydrolyzed collagen, it comes in a big jar. It's a white powder. It's a complete waste of time and money to buy one jar thinking that you're going to try it. You have to buy a minimum of 2 jars, and here's the reason. The term is loading dose. It's not like magic. You take it a couple times and all of a sudden your hair grows back in your bald or something like that. The body has to adapt to this daily availability, this new availability of these building blocks of the body's new collagen in your blood, right? And so the way you do that is by taking usually 2 smoothies, one morning and one night, and put 3 tablespoons. You blend 3 tablespoons in the juice, and you do that. Once you start, you have to do it every single day until 2 jars are gone. I always say that's the only way to try it.
Ah, that's good. And is there a preferable juice or preferable juices or any juice that one might want to choose?
Yeah, I go round and round with people on this. Not really. It's just the suspension and bioavailability, the rate of absorption. Just get the best organic juices that you can. Obviously, you don't want to try Sunny D. No concentrates, no sugars, no low, and don't want to mix it with Snapple. People are all the time they're calling me up and saying, "Oh, it's not. I'm mixing it with my coffee. It's great." I'm going, first of all, So when in doubt, follow the directions.
That's right, and the directions are very clear on the packaging. This is really stuff. This is really great stuff. Hydrolyzed collagen. You can get it at thedoctorwithin.com. Now, one other thing here pertaining to that, with natural ingredients, such as collagen or natural aids, health aids, whatever one wants to term it. These things, even though we follow the directions and we want the best for ourselves, we don't want to overdo it. Is there a way that one can overdo even some of the good things? It should be taken as directed, but if we overdo it a little bit, is that going to be injurious to us, even with something as good as collagen?
That's another very good question. This is the difference between pharmaceutical drugs and holistic supplements. Mm-hmm. First of all, most holistic supplements, most food supplements that you buy at GNC or the mall, vitamin shop. I discovered this after many years, Al. Most of them are worthless. And do you know why that is? Because like 90%, some very high percentage of supplements that we see in mall vitamin shops and supplement stores are bottled and manufactured by whom?
Well, it's bottled and manufactured by the market, the place that we're buying it, and the big the big end. I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't leave it. Good enough. Okay, we'll try that again.
See, talk show hosts. I'll clue you in. They're not always listening. they're thinking ahead sometimes. Repeat the question. Maybe I'll answer it right this time.
Okay. No, I'll just make the statement. I'm not taking any more chances on it. Okay, here it is. 90% of drugs. No, sorry. Scratch that. We're going to edit that out. Starting over. 90% of supplements that you see in your mall vitamin shop, your mall supplement store, are created and manufactured and bottled by the drug companies, the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
It took me the longest time to figure that out, and they spend as much money as possible on advertising and on a really nice label, and as little money as possible on the ingredients.
Well, I knew the answer to that once I heard the question that second time. Honestly, the first time you asked the question, I was doing something else here, preparing for maybe the next thing I would ask you. So I really didn't hear the question. I was just
You're
fiddling around.
But
Thank you.
I still didn't answer your question. You asked about ODing on it.
Yeah.
So actually, the low end of the supplement spectrum, they actually do have a deleterious effect, a negative effect on human physiology. But the real quality, the small category of valuable holistic supplements, they will give what they call, Joel Wallach used to use this term, expensive urine. That's the worst that they do. If you take too much of a natural holistic supplement, it won't really be detrimental to your physiology. It will just spill out in your urine. So that's why there are only 7 supplements that I'm recommending on my website, and you could take the whole bottle of some of these, most of them actually, without harming yourself, but it's wasteful. It's wasteful. Mm-hmm. So you want as much as the body can use and absorb at any one time. That's the real answer there.
There you go. And we love that answer. And I'm going to answer something that you didn't ask.
Okay.
And I'm going to answer it right now and then see if I'm on the right track. I've been listening very intently, taking notes, and I'm sure that many of my listeners are doing the same thing. They're taking notes on arthritis, and particularly why drugs don't work, but many things do work. So I'm going to list some things that do work with arthritis, and I think I'm on the right track. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to list them in any sort of order of priority necessarily, and I'm not going to list them necessarily exclusively. There could be things that you can add to the list, but I don't think that there's anything that you're going to subtract from the list, and that's the important thing. And I want to get this out to my listeners and then have some validation from you and reflections on it. A few things that really work with arthritis. Okay, very good chiropractor, and that might actually be top of the list, who knows. But a chiropractor that really knows his stuff, that cares also about you personally, takes an interest in your personal case here. And that means that not only do they take x-rays, and Dr. Tim suggests that, I suggest that as well, even as a layperson. X-rays, they look at those x-rays, and maybe plain film x-rays might be the best here. And they look at it, and then they adjust for your particular lifestyle, your particular case here, and also your particular physiology. All of this stuff goes into it. So the chiropractor, very, very, very important. X-rays, very, very important. And then, hydrolyzed collagen, as Dr. Tim was talking about. Now, that is his special product, and it's a great one. And the guy knows what he's talking about, and that's at his website, as we've been talking about all program long. There are other things that could help. Lubricants, and I'm putting it, this is my lay term here. It doesn't necessarily have to be medical at all, but lubricants, maybe such as fish. As Tim was saying early on, 4 helpings of fish maybe per week, 3-4 helpings of fish, and particularly in my case, maybe codfish and salmon, because I really like that, and cook it, or, you grill it. Okay. I don't grill nothing, but
Okay.
if you're going to cook it or fry it or something, don't use oil. And certainly don't use butter. Use just the natural fish itself, and it'll create its own oil at low flames, very, very low flames. Do it gradually. And fish is great here, and also fish oil, omega-3s, maybe supplements along that line that I use. Stay away from some of the heavy-duty stuff, a lot of the steroids, although, as Tim mentioned, under extreme situations of pain and acceleration of the arthritis, maybe some steroids could be good here, especially cortisone, if used very judiciously and for short-term purposes, maybe each time. These things, very, very, very important. And I'm going to add a couple of things here. Exercise can be very helpful here. Movement, anyway, that was Tim's word initially. Movement. Now, we know that that's very important. Moving around, because in the morning, sometimes you're going to be a wreck if you have arthritis. And then we do some movements, and throughout the day, it gets better and better and better. All right. Now, we wish that we didn't have to sleep. However, we have to sleep, and maybe to some extent, I'm going to ask you this too, not at this point, but because I want to go through a few other things. I listed also, now this doesn't necessarily help arthritis, but I don't think it does it any harm. Cage-free organic eggs are okay. They're not considered the same in the same category of dairy products as Tim was talking about earlier to stay pretty much away from. Eggs can be fine, organic, cage-free, that sort of thing. And also, things along the line, I'm adding this right now and see if I'm still on the right track. I found at a certain point and still find that MSM, and I don't have the bottle in front of me or the packaging in front of me, so I can't tell you what it means, but I certainly am familiar with MSM. It's a sulfur product. Right. That really does seem to work well with any sort of back situation. Turmeric seems to work well with the back situation too. Coconut oil, I drink a lot of that. I've been told that it's it's also antibacterial or something along that line that can really help out in all of these. A lot of this is getting into just general health as well, but general health is going to be good for your back. As well, and also adjustments, probably not just by a chiropractor, certainly by a chiropractor, but I believe, and again, I'm going off on a limb right now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in judicious, again, that all-important word judicious, when done judiciously, the patient, if I want to use that term, person suffering from some sort of arthritis, if it's not really severe, can adjust certain ways, maybe just naturally, can feel where, they go a little bit, we call it stretch, go a little bit, and we feel something, even to the point, I find sometimes, hearing my spine kind of crack a little bit in a very positive way. And at this point, I'll leave it up to you here. Am I basically on the right track? And even with the last thing that I said about adjustments and doing it oneself, judiciously feeling one's body, understanding how far one can go, and also the stretch aspect of one's body with one's own adjustments. Is that something that can be added to the list here too, Tim?
No, you were
No.
doing
Okay.
good up to that point.
Okay. See, that's my own special baby. So sometimes when you're doing that, moving around and actually doing it, moving around consciously to kind of stretch, and also not just regular exercising, but now placement of, let me see, let me move here, let me move there. Sometimes you can do more harm than good, you're indicating?
Yeah, here's the thing. You're not talking about an adjustment. Adjustment is a very specific
Yeah,
maneuver done by someone other than yourself.
right.
When I see these people, you see football players, putting their hands on their hips before the game and twisting real fast to one side in order to crack their lower back. And you see office workers in Silicon Valley, they'll put their hand beside their chin and jerk their neck to one side to crack their lower neck.
Yeah.
These are you might get a temporary feeling of some relief, but the problem is these are not adjustments. This is just cracking bones. This is random cracking of bones. In the case of the neck, for example, people who turn their neck to crack their neck bones, it's an indication that they do feel some abnormality of range of motion in the lower neck, and there very likely are two of the vertebrae that are stuck together. They're locked together in a subluxation. But when you do that, you cannot adjust the locked vertebrae. You are cracking the one above it, making them what we call hypermobile. You're really exacerbating the situation. In the case of the football player jerking twisting his waist to one side, and then they lift their knee, you might have seen that. That is completely self-destructive, because that is the number one initiating factor of a lumbar disc herniation, rotatory trauma. So the lumbar adjustment, when a trained chiropractor does it, the line of correction is never twisting. It's from the back of the body toward the front of the body. That's the direction in which the lumbar vertebrae subluxate. They go out of place toward the back. They don't twist themselves. You can't twist a lumbar vertebra back. 99% of the time, you can't twist a lumbar vertebra back into place. But it's the danger that you're doing to the very fragile, the susceptible lumbar disc. That's the number one way in which it can be injured.
Whoa, great! Yeah, that's a great rundown there. And yes, I use the term adjustments, but it's not really adjustments. What I was talking about, Tim underscored in a very, very wonderful way. So yeah, stay away from a lot of the precipitous moves that a lot of athletes do, and they end up with.
That's still a really good point, though, Al. Because if you feel like like you're getting some relief, and you develop this nervous habit of twisting your neck or twisting your low back, it's an indication that you do have a subluxation, and you really need it to have it evaluated by a competent professional chiropractor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we pretty much have said everything in this tremendous show that we've had, except I want you, the list that I gave, you okayed it up until the adjustment things, and then you've really drawn a lot of attention to what you mean by adjustments and certain things that we shouldn't be doing. Are there any things that you would add to...
The only thing I would add to that was a pretty good summary of the show, but just to avoid the inflammatory foods.
Right.
The inflammatory foods are going to exacerbate any traumatic or micro trauma, or bad postural habits that you have or subluxations of the bones of the spine, they're going to create more inflammation. And again, that would be pasteurized dairy, refined carbohydrates, white sugar, white flour, and the hydrogenated oils.
There you go.
Which is like in everything.
Yep. Hey, this has been an absolutely great show, and we appreciate Tim for offering his time, his expertise, to help you, my listening audience, to people of distinction, learn more about arthritis and why drugs don't work and what really does work. We've listed it. We've spent a lot of time here. I know that a lot of my listeners have been just captivated by this, taking notes. We appreciate you, Tim, so very, very much. I particularly, because you have just laid it on the line here of some of the right things that we should do, some of the things that maybe we shouldn't do as well. So this has been great. One more time, people, go to this website, thedoctorwithin.com, and not only just check out everything that Tim is doing, get involved, sign up for his newsletter as well. But you can order his hydrolyzed collagen. It's really going to help you. So thank you, Tim. And one quick thing that I'm saying to you, my listening audience, pertaining to arthritis, always remember, more people die of cancer not because of the cancer itself, but because of cancer treatment. Whoa. We heard that from Tim, too. And I believe that, and I think you can take that to the bank. Of course, it doesn't have much to do with arthritis, but it has a lot to do with health, and it has to do with something that is ongoing in our society, cancer and the threat of cancer, and maybe that could reduce, if we do it the right way, right sorts of treatments across the board, not just cancer, but everything else, could help us with our back ailments with arthritis as well, or any place that we have arthritis. So thank you, Tim, for all of this marvelous information. I'm going to have you back again and get all of the other information that I know you said you could go for hours and hours. So we'll have some hours left, at another time, and we'll explore all of this. Thank you so much, Tim, for being my special guest on People of Distinction today with Al Cole. Thank you so much. So until next time, people, wish you peace, awareness, romance, and mostly love.